Hey guys, welcome to our next episode on the Carey's Camp Road series. Today we're here where probably a lot of people have been by here 1,000 times, probably 1,000,000 times. This grave here, gravestone, it looks like it's about to fall off, and it's we probably need to move it over a little bit, but it's been here over 100 years, and it's been here so much that my son Bryce looked up an article and found a newspaper article from 1942 that was written, and here's what it says. It says, in last Sunday's Metro comic section of the Baltimore Sun, page 6, under the strip Strange as It Seems by John Hicks, appeared a picture of a granite marker containing the following inscription. Ebenezer Hearne, son of Thomas, Sally, born 1717, died 1783. His wife, Priscilla Fuchs, died 1796. They were buried 2.5 miles southeast. And that's the inscriptions that it says on this stone. And it says underneath that, I guess I should share, it says, strange marker, and it's 10 miles from Delmar, Delaware. No one knows why or when it was placed there. So we're going to try to answer those questions today. And my neighbor Will is pretty good at the history on quite a few topics. And today Will's going to answer those questions. I think we've narrowed it down that we can more or less give you a pretty good story about it anyway.
In order to understand Ebenezer Hearne, we should back up a couple generations to his grandfather, William Hearne. He was a wealthy London merchant who fought alongside Oliver Cromwell in the English Civil Wars, which were from 1642 to 1651. Now, for those of you that don't know, the English Civil Wars were extremely bloody, just like our Civil War, except it lasted longer. And on one side, you had the Royalists, and the other side, you had the parliamentarism. So basically, they were fighting over what the king's role should be in England was the heart of the issue. And William Hearne his grandfather fought alongside of Oliver Cromwell during those wars. For those of you that also don't know, Oliver Cromwell was, after he died, he was exhumed and executed in a fashion because the people had so much conflict in that country even after those wars. William Hearne found it unsafe to live in England at this time. So since he was a wealthy trader and had routes, he basically relocated his family to Maryland, which would have been Somerset County at the time, but at the Maryland-Delaware line. So in 1688, William Hearne settled a piece of land called St. Kitts, which is over the Delmar line. If you look up the Freeney Hearne Cemetery on Find a Grave, you will find out where he's buried. And he also has a headstone similar to this one, but larger. After that, he died in 1691. His grandson, who this is, Ebenezer Hearne, eventually relocated to about this area. His homestead was about 2.5 miles to the east of us. And
here on Little Hill Road.
Right on Little Hill Road. Basically, Ebenezer's great-great-grandson, William T. Hearne, so his name was the same as his great-grandfather times 4, was born in Independence, Missouri, because the family had, a split apart as everybody had lots of kids back then. And he was a very well-to-do individual, and he decided he wanted to find all his direct lineage and make sure they all had a headstone so that he could trace his lineage from the time they came into this country until the time of his death. In the years of 1895, all the way up until 1907 when the book was published, William T. Hearne rode around and studied a history on his whole entire family. Now, that would have been very difficult to do back in the day because you didn't have cars. You had horse and buggy, so he came here by train and then got picked up by family members and traveled around this area. he had these gravestones commissioned, which would be this gravestone and the one in Delmar at the Hearne Cemetery, which commissioned back in the day. You didn't just order it out of a Sears catalog or on Amazon like we do today. He actually had to hire somebody, get a set of plans drawn up, and they're granite monuments, which were very rare at this time for this area. You will not find many granite monuments from this time period. So this was placed here right around the turn of the century. Right around 1900 is when this headstone and the one in Delmar that replaced the original headstone for William T. Hearne that was there. The reason he placed the headstone here instead of placing it at the original homestead 2.5 miles down Little Hill Road was because this church, which will be this building here, the land was actually donated by the Hearne family. And he figured because nobody really knew where the old homestead was, it would be safer for the headstone to be placed here. So he got permission from the church to place it here than it would be at the original homestead. The other thing to note is Ebenezer Hearne had a son, George Hearne, and he died fighting in the Revolutionary War in 1778 in New Jersey, probably at the Battle of Monmouth, but it could possibly have been a different battle. Another thing to note is Ebenezer wasn't an important man. His grandfather was an important man. Ebenezer was just your average farmer for the time. In fact, there was a lot of Hearne farmers. There's a lot of Hearne cemeteries in this area. There's about 6 or 7 of them. But the reason this headstone is here and the significance of this headstone is because William T. Hearne, his great-great-grandson, wanted stones for direct lineage to his family, and he had the means and the wealth to make it possible.
Very nice. So now you've cleared it all up.
Yeah, everybody knows why. Oh, and there's a book. So William T. Hearne, I didn't just know this from my family history. William T. Hearne wrote the book that was published in 1907, The Hearne Family History. You can get it for free online and you can read it right through your tablet. A lot of that information is in there. Some of this information was also pieced together from local sources and people we have known and members of the family and so forth and so on. But if you're interested in more of the Hearne family history, that book is a great resource of information.
Cool. Well, Will, thank you.
Very welcome.
A lot of people look for this guy, as have you.
Oh, yeah.
And you went 2.5 miles down
Yes.
Little Hill Road, and you had someone actually show you where they thought he lived.
Where we believe where he lived.
But and what's there now?
Nothing. It's ABC Woodlands owns the property. There's actually a pile of rubble on the property, but that's probably from the house that was there after. In fact, when William T. Hearne toured this area with his family, he went to where the old homestead was because they knew where the piece of land was. And the old farmhouse, the first time he came down, had been moved and converted into a horse barn or some kind of animal barn, and a new structure had been erected by the right-of-way. And it said that he, his wife, and his son George were buried underneath 2 cedar trees, which were long gone when he came here in the early 1900s, late 1800s. So there would be no trace of you being able to find him any way, shape, or form. And the best thing he did was put this headstone here, because if it was on that property, then there wouldn't be the people to ask the questions they're asking today.
That's right. And back in the day, Carey's Camp Road was Road 421, was the main road.
Yeah.
So that's very, very interesting. Thank you very much. We
You're welcome.
appreciate it.
You're very welcome.